Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome, welcome, welcome. LaKaye Oomba, or as I like to call her, Professor Oomba, is joining me yet again for season 10 of the episode as a co-host this season. Welcome back, LaKaye.
Thank you, Nache. Glad to be here as always. And I would just like to give you the hugest shout out for making it to season 10. I think that is such a fantastic accomplishment that you're going to try to play down and say whatever. But there's so many podcasts and so many people starting podcasts left and right who don't make it this far at all. And you've had some incredible guests and you had so much influence, and I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. Yay, season 10.
Yay, season 10. It's so crazy because I went back and I was like, crazy. I launched my first episode 12/24/2016. So I really like to say I started in January 2017. And it's crazy. It's been 5.5 years since I started this, and over 100 guests, I think, maybe. It's hard to tell because some are solo episodes and so forth. But that's wild. That's wild. I guess I could look at my Notion to see that number. But yeah, and this is going to be episode 149. And yeah, so it's amazing. I love doing it. I love talking to people. This kind of scratches my extrovert itch, getting to know people and getting mostly introverts to open up and tell their story.
You know, a lot of artists are introverts, and you like to try to get them up here and dig into their business, and we're all like, "Oh my gosh, my business! It's all about me." Yeah,
I love it though because sharing is caring, and we have to learn from each other. Okay, so here's the setup, folks, for this particular episode. Stay tuned on if I'm going to do the video version on YouTube or not. It might just be the audio version. It just depends if we like how we look in this video because we didn't plan to do a video version. So you see us in our raw, beautiful form.
Oh, yeah, they're going to see all my eye rolling.
See me like looking stuff up as we talk. See me right. My hair is like straight afro style right now, but that's okay. But regardless of where you're,
I'm loving the blonde. I'm loving it.
My new look, my bold look. But no, for this episode, we are going to just recap what's happened. Well, not recap all because, a lot has happened in our lives, but we're going to talk about some wins from the last 6 months. Based on what we said in episode 148, we'll talk about why we had to pivot or why we didn't get to some of the things that we listed off. We are also going to talk about well-being and the 5 categories of well-being according to Gallup.com. And how that's going to be a theme for some of our episodes going forward. And then last but not least, we're going to get into some education, talking about books, courses, coaching, and all the things. So this episode is going to be packed. So we're going to try to be as succinct as possible. But I'm really excited to kick it off with LaKaye. And I have already interviewed 7 other amazing women that will be spread throughout season 10. And you guys are going to love them. Love them, love them, love them. So without further ado, all right, let's get to what we accomplished the last 6 months. Okay, I'm going to kick it over to you. What's the first thing you want to mention?
Well, on the winning side, I ran my numbers. I doubled my profits based on this time last year. So it's not where I wanted to be, but something is going in the right direction. So I consider it a win that the needle is moving where it needs to go. And I definitely feel motivated to keep doing more and actually do some of the marketing things that I said I was going to do and see if it gets even better.
I love it. That's win. Okay. Dang, I don't have anything that good.
I mean, it is what it is. So no, I'm really proud of myself, and I have you to thank for forcing me to really dig into the numbers because As an artist entrepreneur, the fun things are taking the pictures and setting that kind of stuff up, being very visual. But having to sit down and say, these are the goals, this is what you're trying to get to, how are you going to get there, what are the numbers? And having that in front of me helped me because I was able to see the progress, and that was motivating.
Data driven decisions is a whole other episode, but it's huge, right? Because when you're looking at the numbers, be it profit, be it your metrics, whatever it is, your numbers in whatever category tell a story and they help guide you to make decisions about the future. I think for your business, for your career, for your life. So I'm excited that you actually did dig into the numbers and you made some data driven decisions that actually boosted profits. Like it worked.
Did I listen for once?
Well, I didn't even go there though, but okay. So my win is I felt like I was more consistent with sending out my newsletter. And that was huge for me. I didn't really post on social media as much, and I focused more on trying to at least get out one newsletter, if not two, a month to stay engaged and actually to try to help drive traffic either to my website or to my YouTube. And I'm proud of myself for that. And I feel like even though one thing that I'm going to get to later is that I didn't post as many videos as I wanted to. I was kind of looking at my video channel now, and I really didn't post. I posted two, but that's okay. But because I put those, for example, videos within my newsletter, I felt like they got more views than they normally would. That was great. And then I felt like my website also got more clicks than normal. It hasn't translated into the sales that I want, but I know if I continue to generate good newsletters with actionable items, that I think it'll get me to where I want to be.
And I will say for anybody who is listening, if you're not on Nache's newsletter list, you need to get up there ASAP. It's not like one of those, everybody signs up for newsletters that we never open because they're whack or they just talk about stuff that you already know or whatever. But Nache actually puts good information in the newsletters. They're always beautifully, expertly designed, and it's a feast for the eyes. So if you're not up there already, you need to go ahead and sign up. I sign up. I'm not just talking. I listen up, and I open all of your newsletters, Nache.
And then when you sign up, you will be put into initially a funnel with some already crafted emails, like a series of 10 or 12 emails. And then after that, you'll get the emails that I'm referring to, which are the general emails that I just send out every month. And that's another thing that I'm thinking about is the strategy behind that, because when to actually send general emails to my do not disturb list, because I don't want to spam people who are in the funnel and accidentally have them receive like 2 emails in the same day, right? Because I don't know where they are in the funnel. So technically, the day I send the general email out is the day they could get the funnel email. So I actually have everybody on a funnel on a do not disturb list. But when the podcast season, for example, starts back up, I want everyone to know about it. So I'm going to have to determine if I want to take that risk or not. So know that I am still working out my newsletter strategy, but I do try to make it very thoughtful and put information in there for everyone, regardless if you're subscribing for productivity or business. I've been sending out a lot that I send to both lists, but yeah, I'm still trying to figure out that strategy. But kudos, I feel like, to myself, a little pat on the back, at least for trying to be consistent with that.
I've noticed. Oh, I got a little treat in the inbox today.
Right. I even sent out a freebie yesterday, a monthly review sheet. So I was really proud of that. So yeah, so what's your next win?
Oh, wait. I was supposed to have more than one. Let's see. Ooh, well, I made a lot of life altering decisions this year. I don't know if it's a win or it just is what it is. Nache, I thought the last win was like really good.
I
So
have another big win for you though.
for me, okay,
Yes.
I'm ready.
Because when I listened to the last episode, I was teasing you about it, about you redoing your website.
Oh, how could I forget my
How could you
website?
forget the website?
You guys, listen. I need you all to all go and look at my website because I harassed Nache for probably 2 years about back end problems. Okay, let me start over. So I was using WordPress, which I know well and I've used for years, decades. WordPress was my boo. But this particular theme that I had was giving me trouble forever. So I would send Nache panicked emails all the time. I don't know how to do this anymore. I'm sick of my website. I hate everything. Toss the computer to the ground. So finally, this spring, I redesigned my website from the ground up to reflect my new vision toward branding and business photography. So I still have some pages in there that will be for family photography or portraits and that kind of stuff too, but it's a little bit buried because I want to concentrate on business photography at this moment. So my last website wasn't really doing that. I didn't have the functionality. I couldn't have any control over it. So yeah, I completely forgot about that, and I am happy that part is over.
Whoop whoop. So yes, LaKaye, Umba.com, LAKAYE. M is in Mary. I almost forgot the thing. B is in boy, AH.com.
It's funny
Okay.
that you did that. Anytime I say my name, I have to do it just that way. M is in Mary, B is in boy, A is in apple, H is in hat.
Yeah, because the M and a B, M and N, it always gets confused. And B, yeah, that was a tricky one too. Okay, so I have another win for myself, which is I actually booked the vacations, like multiple vacations, which is going to explain why I didn't get to do other stuff.
What
Because
do
I
you
went
mean?
to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and took my niece for her sweet 16 birthday, and we did Twilight stuff. So if people were following on my stories, they got the whole tea. I just posted a few reels. I went to Virginia Beach and I went to visit LaKaye.
I need to categorize that as a win for me. Okay, your entire trip to Virginia Beach was my personal victory because you all had a fantastic time and you didn't think you were going to.
Facts. I'm not going to say anything because we might have some people from Virginia Beach listening, and I don't want to be offensive.
Whatever.
But
You
no,
had a,
it was a great hotel. We had a great time. Virginia Beach redeemed itself. I'll just say that. I also went to Ocean City for the first time. And the funny thing about that, it's only like an hour and a half away. And usually I go to all these beaches in Florida, North Carolina, like and Cali. So for me to just actually take the time to go to a local beach was a win for me. So and it was decent. And then I also went to for my birthday North Carolina for like a weekend trip. And I want to say, did I sneak in a trip to a New York beach too? Was that this year? I think so. I don't even know. I've been taking so many trips. But anyway, the point is like after kind of 2 years because of the pandemic, not traveling, I wanted to sneak in some trips, some quick and local that I could drive to, and one or two that I might have to fly to. And I was able to do it. And I have actually two more trips planned for this year. I'm going to New York with my bestie because her niece is turning 25. And then I am going to Chicago for the holidays. So yeah, so to me, actually executing and saving for those trips was huge.
great, especially your Virginia Beach trip because that one was the biggest and best and grandest of them all. And I'm glad that my city opened up its arms and showed you a good time. That's all. And,
Got it.
and for anybody who wants to come and visit, because y'all are also haters of my great area, I'll show you a fantastic time too. Just DM me. We will. I'll plan your whole week.
Oh my God. So yeah, so that was a win. So we had a couple of, I would say, some huge wins the last 6 months, and everything I feel like we mentioned takes time, money, patience, right?
Mhm.
And inevitably they will impact other things. I do have some other wins, but they go into things that I want to work on in the future or I wasn't able to accomplish. So I'm just going to roll those in together. But I'll hand it over to you. What were some things that you ended up having to pivot on or that maybe you decided not to do?
This is the part, Nache, where I'm going to get really authentic and share something. I'm usually a very private person. I don't tell a lot of my personal business, but my mother passed earlier in the summer. And prior to that, she was really sick for several months. So some of the things that I had planned to do to be a workaholic and really get things kicking didn't happen. But because I wanted to take the time to spend with her and things just played out the way they did, I'm very thankful that the position that I'm in allowed me that freedom. So I wasn't working a full-time job. I was teaching and I was doing my photography. So I had a lot of flexibility so I could be there when I needed to be there. But that also took away time from, there was no downtime during that time, considering I'm also a mother and just trying to roll everything together. So that being said, I wanted to mention it because my mom has been a huge inspiration to my life and hundreds of people around her. She was a community leader and she dedicated her life to community service and volunteering and a champion for human rights, a champion for everybody to have rights before it was even cool or became a slogan on a t-shirt. She used to do marches and all kinds of stuff. So she ran a newspaper for 10 years. It was a community service newspaper. And it was all about volunteering and things. It was Hampton Roads based. And so during the pandemic, the newspaper kind of took a back seat and then she got sick and all that. So a big part of my pivot and the reason why I wanted to mention it now is because I want to find a way to honor her by restarting her newspaper. So it's a big pivot and it's kind of happening in tandem with something really negative happening or sad happening, but I want to turn it into something that can continue to inspire the community.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's it's a huge pivot, but I wanted to mention it. I didn't want to just sweep it under the rug. Her life really mattered to me and lots of people. So
Yeah, well, I am interested to hear how you're going to plan that out and what that looks like and if you're going to get a team. And so once you're like ready and you feel like you have a good plan of action, that would be a good episode to do, I think, is like planning a local newspaper, right? And getting community support and then figuring out like the content. I mean, that whole thing, right? Honoring the spirit of what your mom was doing that was a huge feat. So it'll be interesting just to see how you end up doing it. So we'll definitely have to like circle back to that in the future.
okay, I do want to let you know. I want to ease your mind a little bit. It's not going to be willy nilly, Nache. I got a whole plan. You know, I know how you feel about willy nilly. So there
You
is a plan
know,
and a process.
I felt like if I beat you up at this moment right now, I would get a lot of hate mail because people don't understand the level of our relationship. But if you're gonna do it, I'm going to harass you and about all the details and how to do it with a bang and add your kind of like your flavor to it too, which I think will be really cool.
Yeah, the benefit though is this time it won't be a project I'm taking on by myself. There's already structures and stuff in place. So I'm not starting from scratch. I'm starting
Mm.
in a good position.
No, that's great.
I love
So
people.
so stay tuned, folks. We will definitely cover that in the future. I think for me, Something that I decided not to do was get a VA. So remember, I had someone on that talked about how to get a VA, the importance of having a VA for your business. And I know it's important too. And I've had people on the podcast that have assistants. I decided not to do it because of several reasons. One, I am house hunting right now. And so I'm really trying to hold on to every dime. And the fact that I was also traveling a lot too, I just couldn't see like spending money on travel, trying to save, paying a VA, unless like I was getting a certain level of revenue for my business where it wouldn't feel like it would hurt, but it would, like I would feel it, right? And some could argue like by getting a VA, you would get more business and so forth. But for the last 6 months, that just wasn't a risk that I was willing to take because I was prioritizing other things like a trip, right? Or multiple trips. And so I plan to definitely invest in a VA in the future. It's just all about timing because if you guys know me and if you've been listening for a while, I'm all about counting every single penny and knowing where your money is going and being smart with investing and saving. And when I crunch the numbers for me at this particular time, it doesn't make sense. But I think if I do what I need to do, which is focus on marketing to generate more sales, then I can reinvest that into a VA, which then will pay off in the long run.
Yeah, the other thing about getting a VA, considering all the traveling you were doing, is it takes time to train a person to do the things.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not the type of person that's just going to hand over everything and say, just run with it. You need to have several months of trust and accountability built before you can just hand stuff off to people. So it was time, and in addition to the financial stuff, I think, for you too.
Yeah. So, how about you? Anything else that you had to pivot or just didn't happen? And if you need some ideas.
Wait, do I need a reminder of the things I said I was going to do? As a matter of fact, sure, Nache, go ahead and tell me what I was supposed to do.
Well, I'm going to name some things that could have happened. And
Okay.
so, one thing that you mentioned is, and you can let us know if you're close to it or not. For the year, you had a goal for 50 sessions. And as a sub bullet under that, you talked about the 40/40 shoot and how you were pivoting and what you were going to do with that.
Oh, man, let me tell you guys, it's been so hard to market for me personally the 40/40 shoot. And I think I understand why. I think there's not clarity in my branding message. As I just mentioned what I did, I rebranded my website to be all about business photography, right? So I think there might have been some mixed messaging going on in there where it's like just with my branding and my messaging. So I really need to go back and examine that. I am still passionate about it. I still photograph women 40 and up all the time, but just to get people in for that specific shoot has been something I definitely have not been successful with this year. And I know other photographers who have. It's like it's a nationwide push to advance the message of mature women still being beautiful and valuable and having self-worth. But I think I just need to button down on what it is exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't accomplish that. I did not count my number of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I got to that number. Or what, a year still? We're
Yeah,
still in
you still
September. I
have
might
some
get.
time. Yeah.
I need you guys to fly down to so I can say what I did and I accomplished my goal, right? So I can have that goal. What else was it? I was supposed to count my number of shoes and
Oh yeah, you covered that. Yeah, because you were saying the 50 sessions, so you're gonna count and we'll like see if she gets close, people. Don't worry, I'll hold her accountable. And then she just spoke about the 40/40 shoot. And one thing you said you were moving away from Facebook ads and you were gonna put more of an effort on Pinterest. Did you find time to do that, or is that still something underway?
the only thing I managed to do on Pinterest was spend lots of time dreaming of new designs and stuff. So my Pinterest boards are cleaner. So I think I started the process where I was going to, I hid a lot of my personal boards that had stuff that had nothing to do with photography.
Mm.
So that's the one thing I accomplished. Um, and coincidentally, I did move away from Facebook ads, but I signed up for a Google ad. And
Did it help
interestingly enough,
help though?
mhm,
Mm-mm.
I won't say it has not earned its money back yet to get you down in the machine, but I did get a lot more hits on my website, and I got a couple of phone calls based on it. I need to fine tune my ad so I get qualified leads from it. But the reason why I did that, back to the website thing, is because when I switched my website, the downside of it was I lost all of my years of blogs and my standing on Google.
Mm-hmm.
And my Google doesn't even register for my target words. I'm having a hard time speaking. Google does not register my target words. I don't come up on like the first 10 pages after I switch my website. And certain things with the site that I got doesn't have the functionality that I wanted to have. I
Mm.
couldn't just import my blogs easily. So I wanted to appear in Google searches. And I think I accomplished that with the ads, but now I just have to figure out how to fix it.
Mm. Yeah. I think for me, some of the notes that I wrote is I mentioned that I was going to do like a quarterly vision board, but what I found is I did do my one vision board in my journal, and I'm really faithful with like doing my journal. My journal is up to date. I journal like every other day, so I do journal. But what I found is I didn't go back and I didn't do another quarter's vision board. So I think an annual vision board just works for me. But even the one that I marked as quarter one, I realized it is still relevant. Like some things that I had in here was like search for a home to buy in DC. I'm doing that, right? Take many vacations, book vacations now. I've checked the box for that, which is great. Finish website. I did finish the DPI website, but I also need to update NacheSnow.com. So, that part of it is still relevant. I have the Studio 78 podcast on here, which I'm doing season 10 right now. And I have Notion on here. And I forgot to mention my win, I did create a travel planner because since I was traveling so much, I wanted a quick way to be able to plan out those trips and then capture what I've done. And so, really excited about that. I have gotten some sales from that, and I just need to market it more because I think that actually has some legs because people like being organized when it comes to trip planning. So I'm still working on how I can educate and create products for Notion. So that is still relevant on my vision board. And then I had some goals of where I've wanted to be on YouTube. And I'm at like 1,200 right now for YouTube. And I think that's pretty good for only creating 2 unique videos in this past 6 months. But just imagine if I really was focused like I am when I start a podcast season and did 2 videos a month. And actually, I have a YouTube like boss babe coming on to the podcast who's going to talk about creating content and being more thoughtful and planning it out more, which it's funny, I'm a productivity person and a planning person, but I'm not as thorough with my content planning as I'm with the other parts of my life, work, and business, which is so weird. I wing it a little bit more, except for the podcast. The podcast is always very well thought out and very organized. But my Instagram content, my YouTube content, I have it in Notion, but I don't stick to a plan like I do with my podcast and other areas. So I'm like, just imagine if I did on YouTube or with Notion or whatever else, I think that I could have some huge wins.
You know, it's interesting that you say that about Instagram. I was just listening. Instagram used to be instant. So I
Mm.
think we're actually using it in the correct way now, even though you don't have everything planned out. But I would be very interested to hear what the YouTube person has to say because as a photographer, I take footage of all of my shoots. I just don't ever do anything with them. So,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I show them to clients, but then beyond that, so I would like to figure out how to do YouTube content too, if it helps. Or I have a YouTube page, like all of my shoots are up there, but I just don't promote it because it's just, oh, here's your thing. And all of the services I use make you upload to YouTube so you can link it back to my website and to other places.
Yeah, I think when you guys hear our episode, it really clicks. And so I'm like, because I told her, I was like, yeah, it takes me like a couple of hours to edit my YouTube videos, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, probably because you don't really have an outline and like a plan. And
Yeah,
I was like, you're right. It's more of like I have like these ideas and I know what I want, but I haven't sketched it out like I even would do like when I was a designer, when I would design stuff. So I was just like, I don't know why I'm not more organized when it comes to that. So no, my vision board for quarter one is still my vision board now for the year. And I'm still trying to accomplish all of those goals. And the last thing I'll say about that, just listening back to the episode too, I mentioned like the 30-60-90 plan. And I didn't execute it the way I wanted to do, but I think it was just because other things ended up taking priority. And even in Notion, there's a lot of areas and sections that I keep up to date. But because I wasn't fully focusing on like the business side of things as much as I was on the other side of things, like travel and personal knowledge capturing, the stuff was there, but I hadn't put dates to things and put a plan to it. So I did spend a couple of hours 2 weeks ago really cleaning up my data in Notion in order to allow me to execute that 30-60-90 vision I had for the future, especially with the new podcast coming out, because I want that content to feed into my articles, to feed into the YouTube videos. You know what I'm saying? I need everything to feed into each other, and I want a plan for sharing it on Pinterest. I'm getting it together. It was just my weekends literally and nights have been filled with cooking Green Chef, traveling, house hunting, just a lot. And still
you know,
creating some content, right? Writing
right.
newsletters. It's just, I didn't actively make the time and space to do that 30-60-90 plan when it came to the business stuff.
Do you feel like you would have been more on the 30-60-90 if you had some kind of accountability or a partner or a system to work with you on it, remind you of it?
I do. Actually, it was funny listening back to this episode. One thing that I wrote down that I wanted to mention is like the idea of listening back to what you said you were going to do is so powerful. Like listening to what we said we were going to do. And if I would have like listened to this episode 3 months ago, I probably would have taken action on some of those things like, oh shoot, yeah, I did say I was going to do that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that to me is accountable. Having a person that harasses you like I harass you definitely helps too. And this also plays into something else I have been actively sketching out and thinking about when it comes to generating revenue is even for me, I love holding people accountable. And I mentioned on the last episode about being like a productivity coach or consultant or accountability partner or whatever, because I do think that there is value in that. I just don't know what that looks like from a business side, but I think from a personal side, 100% it helps.
I was thinking the same thing because I think I just need a reminder. Well, obviously the whole 12-week thing went out of the went out the window. Week one, was like, oh, I don't know. So if I was meeting with a group or if I had somebody, we were doing two different books at the time. So
Hmm.
our things weren't even in alignment. So we couldn't partner together with that. So I was just wondering how you keep yourself accountable. I mean, are you
Yeah.
your own boss?
I know. I mean, I feel like that's why groups like mastermind groups work. And they have mastermind groups that are free, some that are like 3,000, some that are even like 50,000. Oh, yeah. Like it depends on what circles you're in and the people that you're gaining access to by being in that group and then what that group leader does. But I only mention that because there is power in that, because it's networking, accountability, like all of that stuff, which helps you become a better you. And most people, when they are part of something like that, or even a one-on-one kind of type thing, they tend to do better because someone is going to ask you, why haven't you done this? Right? Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you do it before you get embarrassed and you show up and you haven't done it.
Exactly. Exactly. It works. I've talked about it in the past with the Life Cleanse Journal. I was in that kind of program for courses, but I ended up writing a book. But it was the fact that we were meeting and I was being held accountable. It does help. It does. Yes.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, I think that's how I use school. Keep going back to school, and I think it's because I'm looking for accountability in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So yeah, so okay, so that's like a good recap. There's of course a lot of things that happened that we didn't even touch on. Like I sent out a survey to my newsletter, and that's helping me generate in content. I did take stained glass class this past summer. That's another don't hate. That's another thing that took my time, but I wanted something like creative and to go to a class like that. So now we're touching the surface of why maybe some things had to slide, but no, there's a lot of things in there that we're not sharing too that impacted deadlines or all the things. Okay, so let's go to wellness or well being. In one of the newsletters, actually, I talked about how there's this big push from going to wellness to well-being, and well-being there is 5 categories, at least according to gallup.com and some other websites too, but I'm going to reference Gallup. And the I'm just going to quickly just read them and then explain to you why I'm mentioning this. But the 5 areas is career well-being, which means in a nutshell, you like what you're doing every day. Social well-being, you have meaningful friendships in your life. Financial well-being, you manage money well. Physical well-being, you have energy to get things done. And community well-being, you like where you live. So I gave some examples after each one of the types of well-being, but it does go deeper than that. But I am a firm believer, even before I found out about these 5 categories, that this actually is what brings you joy and completeness and makes you happy, because I was making sure that I was good in each one of these categories before I even knew this was a thing. So we are going to make sure that we have episodes that touch on each one of these categories to just give them their own love and appreciation. One day we're just going to talk about career, one day just social, one day just financial, one day physical, and so on. So, any thoughts, LaKaye, that you have about this concept of that in order to be really like a happy person, like you need to be good in these 5 categories, and well being is really essential to having like a thriving life?
So, Nache, as I was preparing for this fantastic episode, I dug a little deeper and
Mm,
I remember hearing a lot about wellness and well being. And I actually did some of that in my coursework, but I had always heard as the 8 dimensions of wellness. And I think we
mm,
talked about this off the mic. And I was like, well, I thought it was 8. And he said, well, it's 5. But the 8 dimensions of wellness are similar to the 5 of well being, but what it leaves out is emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. And so I
mm-hmm,
did some more research into that. And the 8 dimensions of wellness was developed by a woman who worked with alcoholism, and her background was in addiction and all that kind of stuff. She was a practitioner to help people do that kind of stuff. Well, the 5 were developed by 3 men. And you hear it a
mm,
lot in terms of being used for corporate environments and how they're trying to help people in business try to have a more well-rounded life. So I thought that the interesting thing to me was they left off the woo-woo stuff, and he
mm-mm,
said we're only going to do these 5, but the female doctor included 8, and they're all similar. Everything overlaps except those 3.
mm,
So the reason why it
mm,
stuck out to me Now you need to research and make sure I'm telling the truth, but I am.
No. I actually, in preparing for this, I did see that on some other websites.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was like, well, isn't that kind of like the physical well-being gets to kind of the really kind of the physical and mental side? But I did in my research see the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual, and I did think it was interesting, the two philosophies. So I believe you. I'm not doubting you.
So I know we're going to come back to books later, but the one book that I'm listening to now is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Mm.
And in her book, she talks a lot about how corporations take away a lot of the emotional stuff and they just want you to concentrate on being the facts and figures and the numbers. So
Mm.
when I saw this and I realized they took away emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and what was that? Emotional, spiritual, and intellectual, it made sense to me that the five was used a lot to try to engage business people and corporations and things. So I just wanted to bring that nerdiness to your podcast.
I'll say let's put a pin in this, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
the next episode we get together, we can talk about which one we decide to focus on, because I do believe in meditation and that there is something bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? There are some elements there spiritually that I believe, even though I am not a very religious person. So at first it gave me pause because I was like, ooh, is this getting into more like religion and so forth? And a lot of times if something is that, it gives me pause for various reasons, which I won't get into right now. But the articles I read, it was more about, depending on who you are and what your beliefs are, there's a lot of dimensions to that spiritual category, which I am okay with, because I like whatever I'm doing, promoting, or being a part of to be more inclusive and not tailored to like one set of beliefs, if that makes sense.
Oh, of course it does. But according to the eight dimensions of wellness, the spiritual is about expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life. It's not
Mm.
religious well-being, it's
Mm-hmm.
spiritual. So it's just about the meaning of life or feeling like you have a sense of what you're trying to accomplish as a meaning of life. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that's why instinctually corporations just leave that out, because it does have a connotation of religion, but I don't think that's the intent behind
Mm-hmm.
this word in this application.
Mm. Yeah, no, this is interesting. I'll definitely do some more research.
I love a good research assignment. I love it.
So, folks, we will get back to you on that. And then last, I just want us to wrap up really quickly on education and talk about anything related to books, courses, and coaching. So, anything you would like to share about that? I know that on the last episode, you talked about potentially going to a large photography conference, and then you also talked about potentially getting a photography coach.
Okay, so I wanted to go to the Portrait Masters Conference, and I had all intentions of going. The Portrait Conference is happening probably mid-September when we're recording, well, early September when we're recording this podcast. So I'm obviously not there, but I just couldn't make it happen. Right now, I am in the process of taking care of financial obligations that for my mom's estate, I'll say it that way, moving to a new house, cleaning out one house. It's too much going on. It's too much financial responsibility right now and too many time restraints right now. So I just couldn't make it happen. Even though I planned all year, and I'm going to be so sad looking at everybody's beautiful Instagram pictures. I wanted to go to make connections with other industry leaders, and learn from them and be inspired. And maybe by this time next year, my portrait business will be quadrupled because of new information that I learned. That's why I wanted to go. So I'm bummed that I'm not there, but it just wasn't the right time. So what I decided to do instead of getting a photography coach is, while dealing with all the emotional things that were happening at the time, I signed up for BetterHelp and I did some counseling sessions with the therapist, and that helped so much with the emotions and all of that stuff that I wasn't able to handle. And I think that's why I'm in a good place now. Not the best place. I'm not overjoyed and over the moon, but I'm not where I thought I was going to be, in some deep pit of despair. And that's because I took the time proactively to get that kind of coaching. And I also made some connections with some other types of, I would say, more life coaching things. So I did that. So now that I can move on to the portrait coaching, and I don't have to have the emotional baggage that I take into it as well. I think that was and I'll talk about the book too. So I mentioned I was doing the Dare to Lead. The reason why I decided to pull up that book is because in stepping into this newspaper and being more outwardly focused, like, she was the face of the newspaper, so somebody's going to be expecting something similar, I'm assuming. But there will be other people that I need to work with who are older, more experienced, leaders in the community, and I want to be able to speak to people and run a team in an intelligent manner. And I've always liked Brene Brown's work, so I wanted to dig in and see how I could apply my own emotional intelligence to this new position that I'm stepping into.
Yeah. So what's interesting that I cannot, and people are going to throw stuff at me through whatever you're listening to, but I have tried Brene Brown books and I can't, and I listen to sometimes some heavy data books or just books that go deep into some topics. I forgot which two of hers I tried. I could not get through them. Like, my brain was like, nah, I'm going to try again. But I just could not get into them.
That's how I feel about Big Magic. So
I love Big Magic. And because Elizabeth Gilbert loves her, right around that same time, so this was years ago, I was like, I'm going to read Brene Brown because she recommends Brene. And then I tried to read it and I was like, and so I'm going to try again because everyone I know loves Brene Brown. I don't know why. And I know her content is good because when I read articles and so forth or see her speak, it resonates. For some reason, I cannot get through her books.
Well, I will say she writes from an academic background. So a lot of the books that she published are due to her tenure and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of facts and figures and research, and so that part might be the disconnect.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm going to try. I just couldn't do it. Sorry, Brene, if you're listening to this, Brene.
And she might be listening, Nache, okay?
Brene, this is no shade. Maybe you should just come on the podcast and we just should have a conversation. If you all know Brene, see if she can come on to the podcast.
I am a fan.
I'm a fan of Brene too. I just can't read her books.
I wonder also, Nache, if like Brene Brown's topics usually are about vulnerability and what's the other thing? She talks a lot about people who don't have the self-confidence and how to get that, and daring to lead. You're literally doing everything that she has in the book already. So maybe the reason why the books don't resonate is because that's the way you operate in real life. And it's like you're reading something redundantly.
No, I agree, because anything that goes with, yeah, I could see how that could be a disconnect, because it's just like, it's like if someone is already I'm just throwing out an example, but if somebody is a very confident person and then you tell them to read a book on confidence, it's like they're not going to enjoy it because they don't feel like they are gaining anything from it. And so you're right, like maybe it just isn't resonating with me because I'm just like, oh yeah, of course. Or it just, I don't know. For some reason it's not hitting, but you could be spot on with that.
Yeah, now that I think about it, this is not a book that you would need, but the Dare to Lead might be a little bit different in just terms of when you have an empire of employees, like how to deal with that. Because that's the goal, to have, well, I just want to have 5 and I want to be able to lead them effectively.
Yeah. But usually, I don't know. I mean, the weird thing about it is, even if I feel that I'm knowledgeable about a specific topic, like even I still read productivity books because I want to be better at productivity. So I would still read maybe books on vulnerability in order to to see if there's something that I can do, or if I'm mentoring someone or coaching someone, something an approach I could take, a different type of approach based on what I learned from the book. So no, I just think it's the writing style. It just doesn't hit for me.
Okay, I get
Yeah.
that.
So for me, I had so many good books. I don't even know where to begin, but I will just the newsletter list has seen all of these books. But I'll just say some of my favorite nonfiction books because normally I never read nonfiction books ever. Like until the past year, I think oh, excuse me, let me say that again. So normally I never read fiction books. I
Oh,
only read
say,
yeah.
all of my books are nonfiction.
I only read nonfiction books. God, my brain is tired. And so I challenged myself to read more fiction books. And actually, I got recommendations from like some of my favorite podcasts or people I know. So I read like The Midnight Library. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, where the crawdads sing, The Children of Blood and Bone, and then The Children of Virtue and Vengeance. And I will say, and listened to Impact Winter. So I'll just say Impact Winter by far was my favorite fiction book. It's on Audible. It has multiple voices. You can hear the crunching of the snow. It's about like vampires. It's like all the things. It was as if I was watching a sci-fi movie, but I was listening to it. It's free on Audible. Loved that book. That was my favorite. My second favorite book was oh, I didn't even mention it, but I just finished it. It's called Love and Other Words. I loved that book. Know that it does have some spicy scenes in it, but I just resonated with that book for so many reasons that I can't really even get into right now, but maybe in the future I will. but
Oh boy. Okay. What's it called? Love and Other.
and Other Words. It's by Christina Lauren. I love that. So by far, two favorite books, Impact Winter and then Love and Other Words. And then my third favorite was Children of Blood and Bone by Tori Adeyemi. I might be saying her name wrong. I thought that was really good. Black author, infused fictional story to reflect what we're going through as a people, like in real life. Great. Now, the other ones were pretty good. Like the second book of hers was not bad, but I didn't love it as much as the first. A Court of Thorns and Roses was great, but I gave it like a 3 out of 5. I really did like The Midnight Library. I did give that a 4, so that would be fourth on my list. Where the Crawdads sing, I know there's a movie out too. I gave that at a 3 out of 5. It just this it took too long to get to the point, but it wasn't bad.
I can tell by the peacefulness in your face that you're reading from your Notion list.
I have like, yes. There's like my little thumbnail images. I could tell you when I finished it. Yes, like I love it. Now, I will say for nonfiction, I read How to Retire with Enough Money, which was good. And that one was, I did the Kindle version. How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. Excellent, excellent book. I recommend everybody reading that. It's like the history of our country and him going to some key spaces within the country and talking about it. Great, great book. I did the audio of that. And I also did the audiobook of Everybody Lies, and it's like big data, new data, but it's all about big data. That's interesting too. That is spicy only in the fact that he talks about certain kind of like spicy websites and what the data from those websites tell you, but that's not the whole point of the book, but he does mention that a lot, so I just want to mentally prepare people for that. But that one was really good too. So I had for over the last 6 months over 9 books that I've read, because there's some that I'm in the process of reading too. that were really enjoyable. Because like I got Real Estate Investing 101 while I was in Portland, and I've just been reading A Minute to Think. That's one of those books that's taken me several months to read because I just read like 10 minutes a day or so. And it's okay because I'm implementing or taking in like the advice. So I don't care that it's taken me almost a year to read the book. I just got it at the beginning of the summer, but it's one of those books like you don't need to read it all at once anyway, if that makes sense.
So now I need to revisit because you just made me sound like a scrub. I named all about 85 books on top of everything else you're doing. So let me just go back and say for the record, I have listened to a lot of books. I have an 11-year-old daughter, so we do audiobooks in the car. And so we did the Harry Potter series, and we did one called The Sisters Grimm series. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it. I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
I mean, it's not as adult as Harry Potter, so I don't know how you would like it, but it was perfect for my daughter. So if any of your listeners have a suggestion for another series I can listen to in the car for over a year, I would love to have that. And I bought some books with the intention of reading. And intention is everything. So let me tell you about the books that I bought.
This is why Audible is, or Libby is your friend. Library books.
No, but you know what? I like Audible. I love Audible. I've had it for years, and I spend a lot of time in the car, so I like to hear things. But I find that books that I really like, I want to have the physical copy so I can make notes and underline and dog ear and things.
Mm-hmm.
I bought Profit First.
Good book.
I think you recommended it to me.
Oh.
It's on one of your lists, I'm sure. But it's come up a lot in different photography groups I've been in, and plus hearing it from you. So I have it, and I read the first chapter, but I've not finished it. And I have Get Good with Money by Tiffany Aliche. It's my girl. We're going to be Nigerian sisters at some point. At some point, we're going to be friends. But I got her book, and that's all about, it has the basics of money all the way up into investing. Again, this is probably a book that you don't need just yet or ever, but you can recommend it to people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that people know that
you
I like
read
books as well. Because you named about 85 books, and it made me feel some kind of way. So I needed to, I felt the need to step my game up with my book game.
Well, with that said, though, that's when it came to education, that's where I soared. But I didn't go to any conferences this year, like any podcast conferences. I missed Craftcation, and I didn't do any type of coaching or anything like that. And the only other kind of class I took was like a stained glass class, which is 9 weeks, and I took during the summer. And then I did a fun one with a couple of my buddies here, where we made a terrarium in 2.5 hours. We all have different ways, and it depends on time. And a lot of these books I did do via Libby, the Audible version, or I wouldn't have finished that many books. I just couldn't. But I am with you. If there is a book that I really like, I will at the very least get the Kindle version of it and then go back through and highlight certain things that I want. And that was one of the reasons why I bought the Real Estate Investing 101, because that type of book, to me, I need to highlight and for things to resonate with me. Like just listening to it, I wouldn't be able to retain it as much and refer back. Yeah.
I'd like to back up for a second. I heard you mention podcast conference. I would like to know, as a frequent guest on the podcast, am I allowed to go to a podcast conference? I mean, I don't
Yes, you could be like, hey, I have appeared as a co-host on Studio 78 podcast for multiple seasons now. So 100%. And that would be a double for you, because not only can you say, oh yeah, I've done co-hosting, but do you need photos done for your website and your... Right? Because it's even like me, like eventually I need to get more photos taken, because I don't even think I look like my last set of photos. I've changed so much in the last 4 years or so, 5 years.
On that.
So yes, you can.
Okay.
It's legit.
Sign me up. I'm going to the next one.
All right.
The next one. Also, I'm back on this book thing, still feeling
Oh
accurate.
yeah.
I'm going to go back to going over Jen Sincero's books,
Oh,
the You
I
Are
love
a
Jen's
Badass books.
books.
I think those are
Yeah.
books I need to hear like a couple of times a year. So I need to
Yeah.
go read those.
Mhm. No, I think I'll link those in the show notes for people, but yeah, the You Are a Badass at Making Money
Mhm.
is great. And You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life, I thought was very well done too. So she definitely has a formula and she puts a lot of thought into her writing. I do love her books. I would listen to them again. All right, LaKaye. Well, that was a lot. I was thinking that maybe we would try to stick to a shorter episode, but who was I kidding?
I don't know what you're thinking.
And so we have kicked off the season, my friends. Next week, I will have my first guest on. And please share away. Sharing is caring, my friends. If wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe. And also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate me 5 stars, leave a review. All of that really helps. The sharing the episodes on Instagram or via email or text message, that also really helps too. I'm looking to have this big launch so you can assist me with that. And I hope that you are just as excited as I am about this season. Now, LaKaye, thanks again for being on here. Please tell the listeners where they can find you.
Please, listeners, find my website that I work so hard on. It's www.lakayeumba.com. I'm also on Instagram at LaKaye Photo. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So I would love to have some more LinkedIn friends
Mm.
with my name, just my name.
Yes. And for you guys, for that information and all of the links to what we've mentioned, please go to the show notes page. And that, of course, will be at NACHESNOW, NacheSnow.com/149. And until next week, my friends, have a good one.